And we're live.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone out there. It's a rainy day, but hopefully people are nice and cozy inside.
Yeah, though we took a nice jog in the rain.
Yeah, we did.
I don't mind it. Yeah,
It was nice.
We're taught that rain is this thing you should avoid, but you know, we're not icicles here. We can handle a little water.
That's true.
So once you get out there, I feel like it makes you feel like you're like you're braving the elements, and I don't know, it gives me energy. It kind of fires me up. So
Yeah,
I enjoyed my run. Did you?
Yeah, I liked it. It was nice.
Yeah. So
Definitely nice.
Yeah.
So yeah. Besides the rain, we're here. We're here to talk to you about and hopefully have a discussion for those of us joining live. We're talking about the fear of social anxiety that everyone faces in different, manifested in different ways, of course, and how we're all, geared towards, wanting social acceptance. This is a human innate a need, right, for us to be able to be, in a group, in a tribe, in a community where we feel good. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of one of the central aspects of being human, right?
Yeah.
We discovered as a species, as many species discover, that by working in groups, you can help each other out. Someone's good at something, another person's good at another thing, and so by grouping together, forming tribes, you sort of increase your chances of survival. So that's built into our DNA, this idea of belonging to a tribe.
Right, and we want to belong. We want, people to like us and to want them to be in our group. Do you remember, like back in the day, in school times, when we were younger, where I forget the name of it, but maybe it was like let's say dodgeball, different games, but let's say dodgeball. They would captains, and each captain would choose the people on their team.
Yes.
And if you were chosen last, that was like a big deal.
The line selection process. That was like easily one of the most terrifying, anxiety-inducing experiences that you could have in school.
I don't think it's a great way for...
Oh, gosh. I
think that
hated it.
I think that should be eliminated because it makes the person chosen towards the end or even at the end like, oh, okay, well, that's process of elimination. That leaves two people left. That makes us feel so badly, right?
Totally. And it's funny you mentioned that because forget school.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, at my old company, we did this thing that is a lot of fun. We would do a bowling competition every year, and we'd break it up into teams. And so the founder and I were the two team captains facing off against each other. And it was the same process. We had to like select the team, but we did that quietly, sort of behind the scenes, so no one saw the selection process.
Right. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah. And so, this is one of the ways in which we can see how it's so important to be liked. And even for the people who say, oh, I don't care, people who feel like they're misanthropic or whatever, there is still, I think, a part of them even that wants to be accepted by people, even just one other person. Like this
accepted,
is part of our
wanted,
DNA.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to feel needed. You want to feel cared for.
Right.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So, these are very natural feelings to feel in terms of, being part of groups and wanting to fit in. That sense of belonging is very strong, right? And we respond pretty fiercely to it, right? People will go out of their way to fit in, right? How many times have you seen, the clique, just like being part of a clique or not wanting to be part of a clique, but knowing you wanted to be socially accepted. So
also pronounced clique.
Yeah, right. A clique or a clique. A small group of people, usually popular people. I'm thinking, in the context of like a high school dynamic. You see it all the time in American movies.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's everywhere. It's
everywhere.
It's that same process, whether you're adults or your kids. This sense of us and them, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be part of the us. You want to be part of the group. You
The
don't want to be the outcast,
insiders.
the
Yeah.
insider, right?
Right.
If you're left in the jungle by yourself, you have to fend for yourself, right? The tiger gets you.
Right.
If you're with the group and you got the campfire and
Right.
everyone protecting each other,
Yeah.
that's a much safer sort of environment to be in.
Right. So whereas in the past, right, we really couldn't choose our tribe because it was really whatever we were born into in terms of the community, right? Think about, being these remote locations in the caves and all of that, like millennia ago.
Yeah.
Now we have the luxury of actually getting to choose our friends. So that's another way to look at it, right?
That's a very good point.
Yeah. And part of what gives us this anxiety is maybe like, trying to fit in, and we feel like we're a pretender. We feel like we're an imposter if we're not with the right friend group for us. And so there might be some anxiety from that, right? Whereas, contrast that with a situation where you're with really like your bosom buddies, right? Your kindred spirits, your friends that you feel like you can tell everything to and call at 4 a.m., contrast that with that feeling, right? So the social anxiety that comes from maybe not fitting into a group and knowing that we don't really fit into that group, maybe not even wanting to fit into that group other than just maybe like the social status recognition.
Yeah.
But that's another way of looking at it, right? Being able to choose who we want to hang out with.
Totally. And if you think about one way that really comes to the forefront is when you move to a new location,
Yeah.
right? Or you switch schools, or you switch jobs,
Yeah.
A totally new environment. And that's a huge source of anxiety,
Right.
right? Because suddenly you're in this new environment that you're unfamiliar with, and you don't know what's safe, you don't know who to trust, you don't know, who you're going to get along with. All of these things, as you pointed out, in the old days, the old days, right, when we were still cavemen, you didn't have a choice, so you didn't really have to go through this sort of, what do you call it, disorienting process.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it happens all the time, particularly in the last few months. I think a lot of people have been making changes that they weren't expecting to make.
True.
And that can be a huge source of anxiety that we might not even realize, but it simmers in the background while we try and make sense of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And so, these are very natural feelings to have. And the good news is that there's ways of like mitigating it, right? So knowing what types of social situations give you anxiety, you're able to pinpoint and then work towards improving. So if your public speaking anxiety just takes over you, well, then that's an area to explore in terms of, ameliorating in that situation. Or, some people have anxiety of talking on the phone, face-to-face anxiety, right? These kinds of things, if we're aware of them, we're able to address them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another solution in a situation like this, particularly where you're in an environment that you're not familiar with, is to bring some sense of normalcy to that, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about this in the past, but establishing routines,
Yeah.
right?
Systems,
building stuff that allows you to feel more at home in this new environment. Something that is repeatable and dependable, right? Integrating some of that into your new life can really help allay some of that anxiety from being in an unfamiliar environment.
right? So for those of you joining us right now, if you have any questions as to, how to sort of deal with social anxiety, why it might be coming up, I mean, these are natural feelings to have, and just, very much part of our built-in, software. A lot of our programming has been upgraded, right, so to speak. But a lot of it is still, from the cave people times. So
yeah, well, that's
it's
the
interesting.
thing. The idea that you can upgrade your programming is very real, right?
Yes.
So we're born obviously with this some of these very sort of rudimentary, you could say animalistic or tribalistic types of behaviors, but through the right strategies and sort of mental frameworks, you can upgrade your software and get better at dealing with these uncomfortable sensations,
Yeah.
right? And bring bring more equanimity to your life.
There's even a strategy where you constantly, it's called flooding, I believe, like with certain phobias. In psychology, this is one of the ways of curing a certain phobia, so to speak. So like arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. One of them is flooding. And so what you do is you basically flood yourself with that experience. So I guess if you had a fear of spiders, if you had arachnophobia,
Right.
you'd have to like interface with spiders and maybe
Right.
like, I don't know, I'm not going to say somebody dumps a thing of spiders on you,
Yeah.
but you come into close contact in close quarters and you maybe get a pet tarantula or something.
You face your fears.
You face your fears.
Yeah.
And so with, social anxiety, whatever type of social anxiety you might have, you really want to put yourself in that environment many times, right? To be able to find it to be, now it turns into like a normal thing, a sense of normal. So for example, for people who have public speaking anxiety, sign up for as many presentations as you can. Maybe join a Toastmasters group. Give speeches, maybe even just to your friends and neighbors, just to start getting over, that specific type of social anxiety.
Yeah, I love that approach because it's very proactive, right? And no matter what, if you're proactively doing things, your mind is less focused on sort of irrational fears and more focused on getting done whatever it is you're setting yourself to.
Yeah.
So I love that approach and that it gives you something to do, and moreover, it's something that helps strengthen a lot of the sort of core skills that underpin success in that category.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, by going out there and actively putting yourself in situations that would typically induce social anxiety, you end up building this foundation of aptitude
Yeah.
in socially stressful
area.
situations. So that you just basically raise your bar of performance across the board.
Right.
So it's like a win-win, right?
Yeah.
You sort of address the anxiety,
Yeah.
and you come out of it with an even more robust set of social skills.
Right, and a sense of resiliency too, so that the next time you face that kind of situation, it's a piece of cake at this point, and you're now well on your way to tackling the next type of social anxiety.
Yeah.
I think we have a question. How to adjust with a different wavelength than us?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's very relevant to what we're discussing in terms of when you're encountering people that you haven't spent time with before, right? That you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
It's that same sort of dynamic where there might be some fear or tension
Yep.
around
The
a
unknown.
misalignment, right? The unknown.
Yeah.
And a misalignment in terms of what the other person is thinking. And in my experience, the best way to do that, or sort of the best way to cope with it, is to be very open
Yeah.
about that sort of what's
Disconnect? Yeah.
between each other,
Mhm.
and say, look, this is the way I feel about this. I know not everyone feels this way. I'm curious if you feel the same way, right? And really open up the space to have a conversation about potentially different perspectives on a given topic.
Yeah, and I think also showing that you want to hear them out, right? If you have differing viewpoints on something, possibly even dissenting opinions, without, involving heightened emotions or anything, like Greg said, really trying to be inclusive also about, what their perspectives might be and sharing your own, and maybe saying, this is, I'm treating this as a safe space. I'd like to share some of my insights and hear what you have to say. Yeah, people with different interests. Exactly. It's the same thing. If you're talking about hobbies and interests in this kind of thing, or you want to participate in activities that perhaps they like, let's say running in the rain, and you're not maybe so keen on it, well, maybe it's a conversation to be had. And also there's a little bit of negotiation involved, right? Like, okay, well, if I run in the rain with you, Do you want to bake cookies with me or
Right. Do
something?
you have hot
Right?
chocolate afterwards?
Exactly. Like there's a nice little
Yeah.
balance.
I find that when there are differences and misalignments, that's an opportunity to learn more about each other and learn more about the world. Because if this person sees something differently than you or has an interest in something that's different than your interests, that's an opportunity to understand why they have those interests and why they take that perspective. And by learning that side of things, the world becomes even more colorful and bigger. And it tends to open up a lot of ideas in terms of how you go about doing things.
Absolutely.
So I actually actively seek out people who think differently than I do, who have had different experiences than I have had, so that I can sort of leverage those interactions to learn more about the world
and also learn more about yourself
and learn about
in
myself,
the process,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
It might ignite something in you that you didn't know that you were interested in, like, I don't know, snowshoeing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, really maintaining this open perspective and also not being afraid, like making the commitment to yourself that you're going to be authentic, right? Authentic in your expression, authentic in terms of like the people that you surround yourself with. Even if they might not be the popular crowd in school or whatnot. I mean, that doesn't even really matter after school. It's really that only, it seems so important, right? It's this myopic view of the world at that age. Maybe now it's a little bit different, I feel with.
That's actually a really important point, which is when you're a kid, the whole world feels like your school. Your school feels like the whole world, right?
That's
so
so important.
and that's why it takes on so much sort of importance into you. But as you get older, you learn that the world is bigger, and the bigger that the world becomes, the smaller any single individual problem becomes. Right. So I think that's another way to sort of cope with this kind of social anxiety, is to understand and sort of as you broaden your perspective of the world and what's going on, it puts into context the sort of challenges that you're dealing with and makes them smaller. There's a concept that has to do with being in awe. And one of the reasons that being in nature can be very therapeutic for the soul and the mind.
Nature therapy.
Right? Is because nature puts us in a state of awe. So when you look at the ocean is huge and there's this crashing waves and just like
can swallow you up. It's so big.
Trillions of joules of energy, just like, everything is going on, and it's so much bigger than you. It's so much bigger than your life.
Yeah, and that's just the above water, right? Underwater too is like a whole. Yeah, you might find Aquaman or something. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but the whole world's down there that we don't even know, right? We can't even explore the depths of those areas. What was it? The Marianas Trench or something?
Mariana Trench. Yeah, the deepest part of the ocean.
So much of this undiscovered. Parts of the world.
Right. And that instills in you this sense of awe.
Yeah.
And it reminds you, it sort of reduces the ego and reminds you there's something bigger than you.
Totally.
And that process alone sort of helps soothe your fears, because you realize, what you're dealing with is only a tiny portion of what's going on in the universe.
Yeah, it's true.
It sort of distracts you and gets you to think about what is else going on in the universe.
Right, and then you might find yourself down a Quora rabbit hole, right, reading about this,
black holes,
and the others.
And galaxies.
Space is another really cool one. This fascination with space.
If you want a dose of awe, just go and search any kind of astrophysics phenomenon, and I think you'll be all set.
We're watching the Neil deGrasse Tyson intermittently, but we pepper it in here and there.
The Cosmos.
The Cosmos. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a reboot of the Carl Sagan Cosmos. And
you'll forget about all your social anxieties after you watch something like that, really, because it does allow you to maintain perspective, right? Yeah. So it's about the perspective, it's about the authenticity, it's about putting yourself in these scary social situations in order to then surmount them and build this resiliency towards them. And also it's about recognizing that, people seek social validation and have different outlets for that. So, one of the reasons I think social media is so engrossing and people are so enraptured by it is, some of us like to seek that validation from complete strangers or just digital, our friends in the digital sense, right? Their digital presence and our digital presence. And, the number of likes we get, the followers, right? The hearts, the comments, right? That makes us feel good. But, we have to be careful not to rely too heavily on that, because if we entwine our ego to that and our sense of, self-satisfaction and self-worth to that identity, right? Then if we don't get a nice comment, or we don't get as many likes, or we don't get as many whatever, then that can make us feel badly. That can actually increase your social anxiety. So it's kind of a tricky balance, right? We have to be a little bit mindful of this now that so many of us also have these digital presence online, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting
Yeah,
to think about it.
Exactly. Learning sort of what really matters in terms of your social interactions versus what's more superficial, or what's maybe not superficial is not the right word, because it can have importance, but not
as deep, maybe?
Not as deep, or just not, it's not fulfilling the social need. It might be fulfilling some other need, might be fulfilling a business need, or some other sort of hobby or aspiration you have. But, understanding what really is providing a source of social fulfillment versus what isn't.
Yeah. So it's all really fascinating. And, again, everybody has social anxiety in different types of forms. So don't feel like, this is something that you are stuck with for the rest of your life, that you're
or that's
the only
unique
one.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, a lot of what we do on this channel is about working and helping us figure out how to improve those types of, weaknesses, so to speak, areas for improvement, rather. And so we have a lot of videos on social anxiety, how to deal with it, even things from like controlling your breath to the shakiness that sometimes manifests if you get, really nervous on stage, for example. So if there's anything else that you feel like you want us to talk about, then just leave a comment and we'll be happy to make a lesson about it. So, yeah.
All right.
So that's a wrap on this live stream. We will see you in the next Explearning lesson and the next Explearning live stream next week. And we're going to hop on over to Stake Your Wealth in just a bit.
Yep. So if personal finance, financial independence, smart investments, any of that interests you, come join us on Stake Your Wealth.
That's right. We'll see you in a bit there. If not, happy exploring.
All right. Have a good one.